Hello everyone, welcome to my part 2 math video on number sequences. For this video, I'll be touching upon questions which are more intermediate or advanced level. If you have seen my first video on number sequences, I mentioned that from the first term to the second term and the subsequent term, there is a constant value that you add, you subtract, you multiply or you divide. But for these questions that I have written on the board, it may not have to be the case. So let's take a look. If you look at example A, right, I begin with a negative number and I end off with a positive number. So the first thing that comes to your mind is the number is ascending order, meaning it begins with a negative and I proceed on more towards the right. If you look at on a number line, I proceed more towards the right, meaning the number is getting bigger and bigger. So for these questions, ask you what are the next few terms, whether the next 2 terms or next 3 terms, and you must see the pattern that is involved in each and every term. Right? So let's take a look at the first 2 terms. My first term here is a negative 6 followed by a negative 5. You know that the number is moving towards the right, so it must have an addition to some form of a value. Alright, so from a negative 6 to a negative 5, should I add or should I subtract? I should add, alright, by 1. Okay, so you can check with a scientific calculator, right? Negative 6 plus 1, I get a negative 5. But is it still the same? Should I add 1 from a second term to the third term? Right? Just to take a look. If I check, right, with a calculator, negative 5 plus 1, I do not get a negative 3. I do get a negative 4. So positive 1 is not the answer. So what should it be? Right? It should be, I should add a positive 2. Right? Because negative 5, if I add 2, I am moving to the right 2 spots or 2 places and I get negative 3. By now you have somehow get a rough idea what is this pattern is all about. Alright? Plus 1, plus 2. The next one should be additional of 3 spots, alright, or 3 places. So I plus 3. Right? Because a negative 3, if I plus 3, I will get a 0. And a 0 to a number 4. Okay, from the 4th term to the 5th term, again, if I follow the pattern closely, I plus 4. So now it makes me easy for me to know what is the next 2 terms, right? So from 4, okay, from the 5th term to the 6th term, it must be positive 5, positive 6. Okay, so if you are dealing with this kind of questions, you must see rather what is the pattern, rather than getting inside your head, oh, there must be a constant value. So what is the 6th term? 4 plus 5 is 9. And 9 plus 6 is 15. Okay, so a question may be asked, Mr. Firuz, if I want to come out with a specific rule for these questions, are they? Yes, there is. Alright, if I want to write a specific rule for this question part A, let me write in short form. Specific rule, right? I'll say that begin with negative 6, right? Then I add n plus 1, okay? In this video, I will just elaborate a bit briefly what does n plus 1 means, alright, later on. Then I add n plus 1 to each term where, and this is where my condition sets in for what is this variable n for, right? To each term where n is positive. Why is it positive for this question? You can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These are positive numbers, right? So n is positive and it begins with 1. Am I right? Because you begin with additional of 1. Okay, so again, what is this n plus 1? N is a variable, so I'm using an algebraic term, alright, to describe what should I add. In this case, what should I add to each term? So n plus 1, so say that if I begin with, sorry, in this case, I begin with 0. Why is it 0? Right? So if n is equals to 0, this becomes 1. Am I right? Plus 1. So look at the second to the third term. I plus 2. So to the second to the third term, n plus 1 is 2. Subsequently, 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. 4 plus 1 is 5. So n plus 1 explains or denotes what should I do from each term to the subsequent term. Alright? Let's proceed. How about this question here? Part B. Right? My first number is 100. Right? And my last number before I need to find the subsequent terms is 90. So I can see that the number is decreasing. Right? From a positive 100 again to a positive 90. So there's a difference of 10. But what is the change in the constant value? What is the change in the value? Is it constant or is it not? Alright, so let's check. From 100 to 98, all of you can answer me. A difference of 2. But what happens when 98 to 95? There's a difference of 3. Right? So is it goes like negative 2, negative 3, negative 4? That must be the first thing that comes to your mind. Let's check. Is it 95 to 93? Is it a negative 4? Check. Is 95 minus 4 is 93? No. Alright? So negative 4 is not the answer. So that is the wrong pattern. So let's take a look at 95 and 93. Alright? So how do I get from 95 to 93? I minus 2. Minus, okay, 93 to 90. What should I do? Again, I get a negative 3. Right? From these two terms, the third and the fourth, right, I have seen that pattern developing. Meaning, there is a minus 2, minus 3. Minus 2, minus 3. So this is considered as one pattern. This is considered as the second pattern. So the subsequent two patterns must be the same. Minus 2, minus 3. Minus 2, minus 3. Right? So in this case is minus 2. And this must be minus 3. So 90 minus 2 is 88. Right? And 88 minus 3 is 85. Alright? So for, again, I like to reiterate that these kind of questions, look at the pattern, the changes in pattern of that value from one term to another. Right? Write on a separate piece of paper, scribble it down, whether it actually follows, right, for each term. Okay? And last but not least, let's look at part C. Alright? This is a bit weird. Okay, if you take a look at it, the first term here is 11, but the second term here is also 11. Alright, proceed on. The last term here is 55. So the first thing that comes to your mind is the number is in ascending order. Alright, for ascending order, there are two operations that are possible: addition and multiplication. Alright, so now what are the next two terms? Let's take a look. 11, 11. Okay, is it a multiplication of 1? Okay, alright. What's the second term to the third term? 11 and 22 is a multiplication of 2, alright? Let's take a look. Multiplication of 2. I'm getting somewhere, right? But look at the third term to the fourth term. Is it a multiplication of 3? 22 multiplied by 3 is 66. Is this 66? No. But, alright, this doesn't work. Okay, so again, you must do a trial and error. Okay, what is the correct pattern of the change of that value? Again, 22 to 33. That is an addition of 11. Okay, but in any number sequences, alright, I have already mentioned that it must have a continuous pattern or a constant value or a continuous pattern which follows. But in this case, there is a multiplication, there is an addition. So that's not the case. Alright? For this kind of question, alright, if you actually read up, okay, it is following a Fibonacci series. Okay, what is a Fibonacci series? Meaning, look at the third term. In this case is 22. How do I get 22 from the first two terms? Some of you have already smiled. Right? I can see that to get 22, I must add the first two terms. Alright? So, if I add this together, 11 plus 11, right, I get a 22. Let's check again. Look at the fourth term. How do I get the fourth term? It's an addition of second and third term. Am I right? 11 plus 22 give me 33. Take a look at 55. Right? 55 is the addition of 33 and 22. Okay? In this case, 22 plus 33 give you 55. So, what is the sixth and the seventh term? So, the sixth term here and here, it must be the addition of the two previous terms. So, in this case, is the addition of 33 and 55, which gives you 88. Alright, and what is the last term? Again, is the addition of the previous two terms. Okay, I use a different marker. Alright, okay, 33 plus 55. Sorry, in this case, the last term here is 55 plus 88 gives you 143. Okay, so if you look at these kind of questions for number sequences, the questions can vary. But one thing to note, okay, number one, look at the pattern. Number two, alright, look whether was the first term and what was the last term. Okay, if it's in ascending order, alright, limit the number of operations that are available. And last but not least, check whether that operation or that constant term, the constant value for each term actually correct for each and every term. Happy learning.